my phone so I can chat to you. OET. Okay, that's fine. Okay, no problem. Okay, OET Live Training. Okay, cool. That's all working well. Good one. Excellent. Already got 50 people on YouTube Live. Hello there on YouTube Live. Thanks for coming along. For those of you in the Zoom webinar, if you have trouble viewing my slides, as in if it's blurry or it's not formatting properly, you'll have to go to YouTube Live to watch this live class. How to do that? Please check the chat. I'm going to paste something into the chat. There it is. There's a blue link in the chat. You'll have to click that, or just go to YouTube, type in OET, and you'll see the live stream up there. Himali can't hear me, but that must be your issue because I think everyone else is fine. Okay, so lots and lots of people are taking the exam this Saturday. Some people are taking it most of the others are taking it in June, it looks like. No problem. So what I'm going to do, or what we are going to do today, is we're going to look at some OET last minute tips for those of you taking the test on Saturday. For those of you not taking the test on Saturday, this will still be very important to understand, and it will give you basically what we're going to look at today are, the most important things you need to know about this exam. The trickiest parts, the ways to approach reading part A, the writing section, for example, what I consider the most difficult parts, or just the key aspects, really. So let's go through this. At the end, I'll do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, write them down. At the end, I'll hang around for about 20 minutes and answer everybody's questions, okay? Cool bananas, I think we're ready to go. Let's do OET last minute tips. So more specifically, we're going to look at writing, reading part A, listening part A, and speaking. Let's have a look at the writing first. Let me just give you a brief overview. So what's going to happen on test day is you'll get a set of case notes. You'll have 5, these are profession-specific case notes, by the way. So case notes for doctors, physios, nurses, etc. You'll have 5 minutes to read the case notes, in which time you cannot write anything. Then after 5 minutes, you'll have 40 minutes to write. And what you're going to write is a referral letter. Generally, that's the most likely type of letter you'll have to write, or a discharge letter, transfer letter, or some sort of information letter, but referral letter is the most common type. Cool. Let me just, before we move on, check that everything's cool. Yep, everything's cool there, no problem. All right, so let's think about the set of case notes that you might receive on test day. Sorry, I've already gone through this. Duck, 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 duck. Here are the writing tips that you need to know. The first one is, and this is absolutely critical, you need to read the task. So when you receive the case notes, at the bottom, right at the bottom of the case notes will be the task, what you have to do. It will contain pertinent information about who you're writing to, why you're writing to them, whether the person knows the patient or not, and what you need them to do, what the request will be. So the task, you can think about the task like the question prompt of an essay, right? Say you're taking the IELTS test and you have to write the essay, you get a question prompt. You need to write about that question prompt entirely, or else you lose points. It's the same thing with the OET. The task is like the question prompt. You need to address the task completely in order to get a high score, right? So let's look at that more closely now. Let's have a look at this one here. There's lots and lots of information in this task here. Okay, first of all, just spend 20 seconds reading this. Okay, first question. What type of letter are you going to write? Well, if we look into this task here, you can see we're going to write a letter of referral. Okay, that's cool. Who are we writing to? Well, we're writing to Dr. Jason Roberts, but who is he? Well, he's a gastroenterologist. Okay. Why are we writing to Dr. Jason Roberts, the gastroenterologist? We're writing to him for further investigation and a definitive diagnosis. Okay, so as you can see, there's lots and lots of information here. Let's ask another question. Does Dr. Jason Roberts know the patient whom we are referring? The answer is probably not or no, because there's no information in here saying that Dr. Jason Roberts knows this patient. So it looks like it's the first time that the patient's being referred to the gastroenterologist, which will also dictate how we select the case notes, right? Anyway, the critical point here is that the task is super important to understand and to understand 100%. After you've read the task, you need to interpret the case notes correctly, right? So as you can see in these case notes, they are not written in perfect sentences. There's acronyms, there's words in parenthesis, there's numerals, there's symbols, here's an abbreviation over the counter, all sorts of, here's another symbol here. So you need to interpret the case notes correctly. So make sure in that reading time that you understand what all of this stuff means. Because if you misinterpret the case notes, it can affect your score because you're going to write incorrect information in your letter. Okay. 3, after you've interpreted the case notes, you need to select relevant case notes according to the task, right? It's always according to the task. This should dictate everything. So relevant here means according to the task. Who are we writing to? Why are we writing to them, for example? So for example, what you might be doing in the reading time is thinking to yourself, okay, according to the task here, I'm going to select this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, this is irrelevant, this is irrelevant, this is irrelevant, and we're going to leave out, we're going to ignore the irrelevant case notes. Just to be sure, you cannot use all of the case notes in your letter because your letter will be probably 300 words long, way too long. Plus, apart from length, you'll be penalized for including irrelevant case notes, okay? You are given marks for including relevant case notes. You lose marks for including irrelevant case notes. Cool, hope that's clear. Let's push on. 4th thing you need to do in the writing section after you've selected relevant case notes is organize the case notes logically. And this is probably the hardest part for everybody. I've marked a lot of OET writing, and organization is critical. That means how you organize the case notes into logical paragraphs. Okay, there's a few things you need to think about here. One is the overall structure of the letter. What will be in your introductory paragraph? What comes in your 2nd paragraph, 3rd, 4th, right? Think about that as you should be prioritizing important information. Okay, so when you're looking at the case notes, some of the case notes will be really important, maybe relating to something that's urgent, for example. They should come right at the top. The less important the case notes should go further and further down the letter. Okay, so it's like a story, and you start with the main action and then you put in the details down below. Okay, 2nd part of organization is not just the overall letter structure, but within the paragraphs themselves. So you structure your overall letter, and then your paragraphs have to be structured sequentially and logically as well. It's a bit of a trick. So read these 2 paragraphs. Tell me which paragraph is better structured. Okay, it's pretty clear that B is wrong. Okay, it's just a crazy paragraph. It's illogical. Starts with, Mrs. Smith has been suffering from a lingering lump in her throat for the past fortnight that may be the result of smoking. That's fine. She has a sore tooth, which is now loose. She sometimes walks her dog on the beach with her husband. This is illogical. It starts off nicely, and then you think, what? And then what? It loses track. Whereas this one flows. All of the information is logical and sequential, and that's nice. That's how you should be structuring your paragraphs, right? They should be based on themes. So paragraph A is about the lump, okay? Your second paragraph might be about smoking, whatever it is, but the entire paragraph should follow the theme, a single theme, okay? Number 5, after you've, or this is simultaneous, we do 4 and 5 together. We organize and we transform together. So 5th, we need to transform the case notes accurately. So obviously this is a bad transformation. Mrs. Smoth has suffered. You read this and tell me what the grammatical mistakes are. Okay, first of all, when you're writing the name of the patient, make sure you get it right. Mrs. Smith, make sure you get the title right as well. Is it Mr., Ms.? It'll tell you. Some of the names are kind of tricky sometimes. For example, you might get a name with like this, McCauley, for example. Make sure you just copy it directly from the letter. Get the name right. Okay, here's a verb problem. Has suffer? Well, it should be has been suffering, for example, has been suffering from you want to get the articles right. In the pronoun, you want to match the pronoun to the gender of the person. Her throat, not his throat, if it's Mrs. For, you want to get your prepositions right. For the past fortnight, that may be the result of smoking. She first complained of the lump, 3 weeks, plural nouns. Since then, the lumps have, make sure your verb agreement is right, have become more noticeable. There you go. So there's lots and lots of grammatical errors in this one here, but this is a hard one. This is transformation's really tricky. So here's a good paragraph with correct grammar, and there's a bad paragraph with bad grammar. Just spend a little bit of time thinking about your verb tenses, plural nouns, things like that. Okay, finally, you want to write between 180 to 200 words in the body of your letter. Like this. This is how it is. If the body is more than 200 words, if it's too long, you've probably included irrelevant case notes. If it's too short, if you've written less than 180 words, you've probably left out important case notes. If you write between 180 and 200 words, you've probably included all of the relevant case notes into your letter. Okay, that's just a little rule of thumb there, but writing between 180 to 200 words in the body. What do I mean by the body of your letter? Not the address, not the dear doctor, not the regarding. From I am writing to ... from the introductory paragraph to the yours sincerely counts as the body of the letter, okay? The OET are not particularly strict on word count. They're more strict on including relevancy, irrelevant and relevant case notes. So just be very mindful about that. Okay, here's the super tip for writing. This is if you remember one thing, remember this about OET writing. You need to complete the task, okay? A lot of people misread the task, which contains all of that information. It contains information like who you're writing to, contains information on why you're writing to that person, contains information on whether they know the patient or not. That's critical because that determines case note selection. Yes, these 3 questions are critical. Make sure you understand them. Oh, and I guess the last one is the type of letter that you have to write as well, referral, discharge, etc. Oh, there it is there. Okay, the next trickiest part of the exam is probably reading part A. So let's go through reading part A. I'll give you a quick overview if you're not familiar with it. So with reading part A, you'll receive 4 short texts. So you're going to receive a text booklet. It'll have text A1, A2, A3, A4. Okay, they're short. They're sort of about 300 words each, 200, 300 words. One will be a graph, one will be, you know, a definition, one will be a case study, and one will be an abstract. So, but they'll all relate to a single theme. The theme, for example, might be, I don't know, toothaches or headaches or something general medical topic. And they'll have slightly different sort of variation on that same theme. So on the answer sheet, you get a summary of about 30 gaps. What you have to do is read very quickly. You need to skim and scan the text to find the correct word for the gap. What you need to keep in mind is you need to fit the word into the gap grammatically. You have 15 minutes, so you have to move very quickly. If you think about it, you have 30 gaps, 15 minutes. That means you need to answer a gap every 30 seconds, right? If you're taking longer than 30 seconds, you should either skip it and come back to it later or just leave it or guess, okay? Don't stay on a particular question for more than, you know, if you spend 2 minutes on one gap, then you're wasting valuable time. And yes. So here are the tips for reading part A. First of all, read the 4 texts. Identify them. Is it a Q&A? Is it an abstract? Is it a graph? Then you need to notice headings and subheadings and keywords in each of them. That's about as best you can do. I suggest spending about a minute to 90 seconds reading the 4 texts. Trying to keep in your memory the headings and subheadings, so then when you go to the summary, you know where to look for or where to find the answers. So the text might look like this, for example. So what you're going to do when you first get when you can first begin reading, so dementia information for families, there's a keyword. You know, what is dementia? Dementia is, okay, so there's a definition. Many different diseases can cause dementia, common signs of dementia. Then I'll go here, physical activity, cognitive decline, and risk of dementia. Objective, method, results, conclusions. Scan read over here, I see keywords like 10,308, 27 year. Okay, let's move on. Now I see a graph, leading causes of death, heart disease, dementia, stroke, lung cancer. I scan read here, treatments for dementia. You can see they're all about dementia, but they have different angles, these texts. Then you want to look at the summary, okay? After you've read the 4 texts, you look at the summary. Each paragraph in the summary will relate to 1 or 2 texts. What do I mean by that? I'll show you what I mean by that rather than explaining it. So what you need to do is take a word from the text, but you remember to transform it so it fits grammatically. For example, look at this. This is an example paragraph from the summary. Rather than one specific condition, dementia is the name given to a group of something affecting the brain. Although something is a common symptom, it is by no means the only one. Other symptoms include So keywords you want to be looking for are symptoms. Obviously, this is going to relate to one of those texts. For example, it might relate to A3. Let's say the first 2 questions relate to text A3, and then questions 3 and 4 might relate to text A1, for example. That's usually how it works. So a single paragraph will either come from 1 text or 2 texts. It won't be completely mixed up and random, but what you need to do is identify a keyword here, and then you need to think, where did I see that? Oh, dementia is. So that's probably in the definition text. Here's the super tip for reading part A. If you remember one thing, remember this. You need to complete the entire summary before the time runs out. And if that means guessing gaps, then guess gaps, because you might strike it lucky. It is possible to guess some of these gaps correctly. But what you don't want to do is this. A lot of people do this. A lot of people are careful readers, which is a good thing. But in OET reading part A, you are not rewarded for reading carefully. You are rewarded for reading quickly and accurately, I guess. But what I see, unfortunately, is a lot of people, they start reading part A, and they start with number 1 and they spend maybe 2 minutes on number 1. They want to get it just right. Yes, it's definitely right. And then number 2, they spend a minute on number 2. Question 3, they spend 2 minutes. And they've already, by the time, they might complete 10 questions out of 30, in which case you will probably not get a B, right? Your aim is to go one question every 30 seconds. The more you complete, the higher the chances are that you'll get a higher score. So your mission is to complete the summary. Okay, let's think about listening part A. Just let me check that everything's okay in the chat here. Cool. No, all good. All good. Everything okay on YouTube Live? If you're not a subscriber, if you're on YouTube Live and you're not a subscriber, do click the subscribe button. So every time we do a live class, you'll get a notification on your phone. You can watch it live, okay? So click that subscribe button. That'd be good. Oops. All right, listening part A overview. Let's have a think about listening part A. So in listening part A, you will hear a dialogue between 2 people. The dialogue is divided into sections. The 2 people, by the way, one is a medical professional, the other will be a patient. So it might be a doctor and a patient, it might be a physiotherapist and a patient, or a dentist and a patient, for example. The discussion, the dialogue, is divided into sections. Your task is to take notes on each section, right? Let me give you some tips. So the title of each section tells you what to listen for. I'll show you what that means in a second. And the number of lines determines the number of key points to note. For example, you might see this, and it says details of incident. How many dot points can you see there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're going to be listening for 5 key points about details of the incident. And what will happen is there'll be a doctor and he'll say, oh, hello, Mary. Okay, so I understand that you had a car accident. So Mary, tell me what happened in the car accident. So she's going to describe the incident. She's giving details of the incident. Well, I was walking along and then this car came out of nowhere and whatever. And you have to listen carefully and listen and take notes of the key details. And because there's 5 dot points, you're going to be taking 5 key points from it. Let me give you some more tips on this one. Yes, somebody's just said in YouTube Live that the speaker speaks very quickly, and that's true. It's natural spoken English. So here are some important tips for listening part A. You are not penalized for writing irrelevant information, which means that you have to write quickly, but if you write something that is not a key point, you will not be penalized. So you can write, you can write whichever key point on whichever line. So let's say Mary says details of the incident. She says the car was yellow. And so what you need to note down is yellow car or car yellow. And let's say you can write that it should go on the first line. You write it on the 3rd line. It doesn't matter. As long as it's somewhere on those dot points, that's fine. Cool. Hope that's clear. Let's quickly talk about speaking and then we'll move to a Q&A. So in the speaking part of the test, you'll be given a role play card. You play the role of the medical professional and you'll be speaking to a patient. You have 5 minutes per role play card. You have 2 minutes to prepare the role play. And in fact, you have to do this twice. So each role play will be quite different from the last. Here are some tips. Let's think about the role play card. So this is an example role play card. This is your role play card. If I'm the OET interlocutor, the OET person, I'll have my own role play card because I'm the patient, you're the doctor or the nurse or the dentist, whatever. So let's look closely at your role play card because this is critical for your understanding. Okay, first of all, you'll notice that there's a setting, which is the general practice. This will give you information about the level of urgency or just the general context of where you're speaking. There will also be a scenario. For example, it'll say this 45-year-old patient is attending the practice after suffering mild anterior acute myocardial infarct 2 weeks ago. Recovery was uncomplicated and the patient was discharged from hospital 4 days ago. He is now very concerned about the long-term process of recovery. So you have some background information about why you're talking to the patient. Then you have the tasks, and these will guide you through the 5 minutes. Now you can see here there's about 5 tasks. So perhaps you will spend about a minute on each task, but it doesn't really work like that. One, you might spend 30 seconds. The next one, you might spend 2 minutes. You might skip a task. You might come back to it, but they should guide you. And more specifically, what should guide you are the verbs at the beginning of each task. You need to concentrate on these words: find out, advise, explain, reassure, provide recommendations. This is what the OET examiners are listening for. They're listening for your ability to find out information, or to give advice, or to explain a procedure, for example, or to reassure the patient. So these are critical. By the way, before we continue, I'm seeing some cool messages on YouTube Live from Ryan, who scored all Bs in his first attempt of the OET. Well done. And there was somebody else. Who else was there? Somebody else before came in and said, thank you very much. I scored 4 Bs from watching E2 language. Cool. Thanks, man. Good work. Keep it up. All of you can do this. All right. Speaking tips. What you need to do in the OET speaking part of the test is you need to take control. You are the medical professional. The OET person is the patient. So you take control of the conversation. You initiate the conversation. You maintain the conversation. You wrap up the conversation, okay? Don't be shy. The second biggest tip I can give you is that you need to listen to the patient. Although this is a speaking test, your ability to listen to and respond to the patient is absolutely critical to get a high score. If you just speak and you don't listen to the patient, you will not get a high score. So what you need to do, in effect, is you need to read the role play card, speak to the patient, listen to the patient, respond to the patient, read the role play card, speak to the patient, listen to the patient, respond to the patient, etc. That's how it works. So of course you get to hold the role play card in your hand. So you're doing it like this. You've got the role play card and you say, oh, okay, Mrs. Smith, now I think it's probably best that you don't go to the gym for the next 2 weeks because of the pressure that it could put on your knee. Okay, so you're reading, you're speaking, and then you listen to Mrs. Smith, and Mrs. Smith says, oh, but I really want to attend my aerobics classes. And then you have to respond and say, listen, I don't think it's a good idea, and I really strongly urge you not to do that for at least 2 weeks, but certainly after 2 weeks, you can go back to the gym. Now, the other thing I wanted to discuss with you is your medication. Are you taking your medication? And then listen to Mrs. Smith, because she's not going to just agree. She might say, well, in fact, I haven't been taking it because I don't like it. And then you've got to say, well, Mrs. Smith, da, da, da. So it's reading, speaking, listening, responding, reading, speaking, listening, responding, like that. Cool. Here's the super tip for OET speaking. Focus on communication, not performance. Focus on communication, not performance. Somebody's just asked me in the YouTube live chat, is eye contact necessary while speaking? The answer to that ties into this super tip, focus on communication, not performance. No, you're not graded on body language. You might be shaking, you might be looking at your role play card, but think about this. The more that you look at the patient and listen to them, understand them, and respond to them, you're not focusing on performing. You're not on stage giving a performance. You're sitting there, you're speaking to somebody. That will help you, A, get a higher score, and B, it'll help you with your anxiety if you're nervous. Because if you're nervous and you're focusing on your performance and, oh, I need to speak and da, 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 that's a bad idea. If you focus on listening to the person you're speaking to, responding to them, reading, speaking, and then you focus on the other person. So I think the question about eye contact is No, you're not graded, but yes, I think it's a good idea because it will help you with communication, and that should be the focus of your OET speaking. Okay, here's the OET super duper tip. You need to prepare properly. So if you're taking this test in July and you have not yet thought about taking a preparation course, I highly recommend you do it. One of the reasons is because only about 25% of candidates actually pass on their first attempt. 75% of candidates fail on their first attempt. The main reason is nobody prepares for this test. They think, I'll go and take the test, should be fine. They go and take it. They think, whoa, that was really hard. They get the results. They've spent $500. It's been a month and they've got C in reading or C in writing because they haven't prepared properly. So my tip to you, if you're taking the test in July, think about a preparation course. Think about taking a preparation course with a premium provider. So the OET have trained specific institutes around the world who are now premium providers, which means that they know what they're talking about. If you take a course with a non-premium provider, I don't recommend it. If you're in a if you want to do online preparation, I highly recommend e2language.com. This is our website. We're a premium provider. We're partnered with the OET. Our preparation materials are spot on. Our methodologies are excellent. You can take one-on-one tutorials with teachers. You can get feedback on your writing. It's probably the best you can get online, that's for sure, and probably as good classroom preparation. So cool. Thanks very much for listening to me about that. And now what I'll do is just show you this wonderful, beautiful logo. Now I'm going to ask you answer some questions rather. If you have any questions, pop them into the chat. I'll spend 20 minutes or so. And now I'm going to have my cup of tea. Hannah, how many sentences should I write to reach 180 to 200 words? No idea, but you should do some practice. You should look at what 180 to 200 words looks like visually on the page so you get an idea. Hannah, how to improve skimming and scanning skills for reading part A? Good question. Really, the only way to do that is to do test practice, I think, because you need to locate synonyms. You need to be aware of synonyms. You need to, if you're just reading, there's nothing to skim and scan for. So yeah, again, good practice materials will be very helpful there. Charlita, Jay, I want to thank E2 Language. I finally did it and scored B's in all of my subtests. I took the PT 3 times and I took the OET only once. Awesome, good to hear. Well done, Charlita, that's fantastic. Ahmed, fast handwriting with lots of mistakes. Yeah, be careful. Genevieve, are we going to be marked incorrectly if we spell something incorrectly? In listening, no. In reading, yes. So in listening, you can make spelling mistakes and still get the right answer. In reading, you cannot make spelling mistakes. Lilith, Jay, how would you recommend practicing writing for doctors beyond the material given in your website, as there are only 3 writing subtests for doctors? Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to make these materials. The OET, go to the OET website. They have 2. They offer 2. E2 Language offers 3. If you did 5, I think that would be pretty good practice. Also, Lilith, if you're a doctor, don't be afraid of submitting the nursing writing subtests on e2language.com. That'll be extremely helpful as well. The case notes will be slightly less technical, but all of the method still applies about interpreting, selecting, organizing, and transforming the case notes. So if you're a doctor on e2language.com, submit both the medical case notes and the nursing case notes to get feedback, okay? Sham, in speaking, if I had very good conversation continuously, but I can't complete all of the tasks before 5 minutes is over, then how much marks will be deducted? Actually, Sham, I don't think the OET deduct marks for not completing the tasks. You're not graded on that. You should, in the 5 minutes, you should have enough time to complete the tasks. But if you do miss one, It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Try and come back to it though in the end, even if you just touch on it briefly. Sharif, how can I improve my pronunciation and fluency? Reading aloud is an excellent way to practice pronunciation and fluency. So get some, go to the British Medical Journal, BMJ, I believe it's called. Start practicing reading aloud. Imagine you're giving a speech on stage and want to read very clearly, very smoothly, without hesitation, with correct rhythm, intonation, pausing, etc. So practice reading aloud. In speaking, is it okay to include or add information not written on in the tasks? Yeah, I think so. A little bit would be fine. You can't just copy exactly what's there. You might give a little bit of other advice as well. Jay, I took the OET twice, but I can't get B's on my writing and reading. I heard that the PT is easier. Are there any recommendations for me? I don't know, Elney, if you've done some preparation yet, but if you haven't gotten feedback on your writing, or if you haven't taken a tutorial on your reading, then don't switch tests just yet. Elney, is there any classroom preparation here in Adelaide? Not sure, Elney, but if you want to do online prep, you can certainly go to us. Any tips for listening part B? Listening part B, you might want to check out the YouTube video, or if it's not on YouTube, it's on E2 Language, which describes all of the different listening tasks for section B, for subtest B. That's a hard one. You just need to be familiar with the different question types. If you're familiar with the question types, then you should be okay. Amel, what is the best way to reduce word count on writing? Okay, that's a great question. So let's say you have 3 case notes that relate to weight loss, right? Now you can write 3 separate sentences, or what you can do is you can join those 3 case notes into a single sentence. So joining information together into a single sentence will help you to reduce your word count. Why they do not give to as result what we did wrong and what we have to improve. Okay, yeah, this is a problem with language tests, that they just say you got a B, or you got a C, or you got 6.5. And you think, well, what did I do wrong? It's really frustrating. I understand that. I guess the reason is it's probably a cost thing. It would cost a lot of money to give specific feedback on your test. I think it would be a great thing to do though. Yeah, it's frustrating. Fanny Rebel, how can I practice selecting relevant case notes? Well, that's about your professional understanding of the task and the case notes. Understanding the task is critical, and then just think about who you're writing to and why. Put yourself in the recipient's shoes. What do you want to know? If you're the physio, if somebody's referring a patient to you, what would you want to know? Okay, think about it that way. Put yourself in the shoes of the recipient. Hamza, which is the best method for listening part B? Yeah, well, it's hard. Listening part B is tough. I don't really have a method for listening part B, to be honest. I just think understanding the question types is critical. Understanding how the test works is critical in terms of the pausing and stuff. But the lecture that the person gives is fast and hard. Jay, in speaking, is there any way to know whether I know the patient or not? In the scenario, it will tell you whether you know the patient. Or say, for example, your patient has returned to your clinic or something like that. In which case you can greet the patient and say, oh, hello, Wendy, nice to see you again, right? Okay, just let me check something here. Whoa, 210 on YouTube Live and 60 people in the Zoom webinar. That's 271 people. Crazy. Elni, what will be the changes in the OET exam this September? Easier or harder? Yes, the OET test will change for the September candidates. It won't necessarily be easier or harder. It's just, it's more logical. I think it's a more logical test now. Just makes better sense. Like it's easier to, in the sense of the test format. Tutu Min, will it be okay in writing if my sentences are very simple? You should try to have a variety of sentence types. You want to have some simple sentences, some compound sentences, and some complex sentences, okay? So don't just write in simple sentences. In reading, can we write in the spaces just to check if the answer is grammatically correct? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yeah. Sharif, in speaking, which sentences should I use to initiate the conversation? Well, you can say this. You can say, okay, let's say you do know the patient, in which case you can just call them Mr. or Mrs. Smith and just say, hello, Mrs. Smith. I understand that you've been having some complications with your recovery. I'm here to chat to you about that. Hello, Mr. Smith. I understand that scenario. Or if you don't know the patient, you can say, just start with, hello, my name's whatever. My name's Jay. What's your name? And they'll say, Mrs. Smith. And you say, all right, hello, Mrs. Smith. Nice to meet you. I understand that, blah. I understand that is a good way to initiate the conversation. I understand that. You relay the background information so you both know the context of the situation. Then you start going through the tasks. All right, YouTube Live. I've got a million questions on YouTube Live here. I'm sorry. There's literally 150 questions here. Hi, could you please give important tips for letter writing? All right, there's heaps of videos up there to watch that. Am I going to hold the role play card in the speaking? Yes, Jay, I want to thank you. No problem, Ryan, that's good. Jay, you have a twin, a little bit older than you on Vishat History Channel. Nice person, historian. Thank you, Joel. In part B, reading, am I able to eliminate? Okay, let's talk about reading part B. Good, nice, nice, nice. Here's the method for reading part B. Okay, so it's a multiple choice question based on a paragraph. You'll have a paragraph, it'll say in paragraph 1, and you'll have 4 answer options. What you do is this, you read the question and it says in paragraph 1, what is the opinion of the author? Something like that. Then you read the paragraph, don't read the answer options. Go to the paragraph, find the opinion of the author, read it, then go to the answer options, eliminate the incorrect. It's a bit harder than that because some of the questions you need to read the answer options. Reading part B is hard, sorry. Jay, will you please discuss the difference between discharge and referral letters? Certainly. So with a referral letter, you've got a patient, right? And you're sending the patient to a specialist. And with that patient, you're sending information that the recipient, the specialist, needs to know related to that case. With a discharge letter, okay, let's say it's usually being discharged back to somewhere. So let's say they're from a nursing home. Okay, so let's say there's an old woman from a nursing home who has come to your clinic because maybe she's got, she needed to get her arthritis checked or something. You've checked her arthritis. Now you're discharging her back to the clinic, back to the nursing home with information about her arthritis for the recipient of the letter. Okay, so they're pretty similar. They're pretty similar, really. Yeah. Mono, I watched Rebecca from the OET give a webinar last week, and she said that in listening part B, You can get the answer right even if the grammar is wrong. What is your insight about this? I'm not sure about grammar. If she said that, I would say it's probably true because she's the OET expert. I know that spelling, they would consider incorrect spelling. Okay. In listening part A, if I put 2 key points in one bullet, will they score it as 1 or 2? 2, you can still get 2 for that. That's fine. Okay, just scanning for questions. Good questions. Lee Dionaldo. Do we have the opportunity to see the interlocutor's task card? No, you only get to see yours, but you can assume that their task card is going to relate, their role play card in speaking is going to be very similar to yours. The tasks align. So if yours says something like, explain the process of injecting insulin, their task will then say, show concern about injecting insulin. Your task card will say, reassure the patient that it's okay, etc. You can see that they go back and forward like that. Christy Brigoli, in your budget package, do we get writing feedback and tutorials? No, in the budget package, you just get access to the materials, which includes the overview lessons, the methods lessons, the skill building practice, the practice subtests, as well as the sample letters, and also the archive of all the recorded classes for the last month, or 2 months rather. So it's $69 US, and it's very good value for money. And it may be the difference between not succeeding and succeeding. So think about it that way. Jay, can we use medical jargon if we are writing to a healthcare professional, example, a nurse, doctor, or PT? Yes, yes, that would be appropriate. So that would be fine. If you're writing to a physiotherapist and you're using really technical medical terms, for example, you may want to simplify it a little bit. So just consider who you're writing to. Treat it like a real workplace test. Okay. Okay. Benita, Jay, I'm planning to upgrade my package as I did not pass in last month's exam. I need to practice with one-on-one tutorials if possible. Do you think 3 sessions would be enough? Possibly. If it depends on which subtests you failed in. So if you failed in more than one, or by how much you failed. For example, if you got a D in writing, you probably need quite a few tutorials. If you got a C+ in writing and that's it, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 tutorials might be enough for you. It depends. It depends. A bit of a how long's a piece of string type of question. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming along. I hope it was helpful. Good luck if you're taking the exam on Saturday. I wish you the best of luck. And if you're taking the exam in July, then do consider upgrading to a paid package on e2language.com for all the practice materials, methods, all in one place, organized, high quality. Don't need to worry, right? And you can always upgrade later on if you want to take some tutorials or get some feedback. Yeah, you can do that. Cool. Anyway, if you have any questions, go to this website here. If you have any questions, check out help.e2language.com. Type this into your browser and you submit a ticket and we will answer any of your questions, okay? Cool. Thanks again, and I will see you soon.